Welcome to Portrait Letters podcast number 2365. And today we are talking about what can silence in a family tell us? It's a great question. But I'm actually on time. Yay. I finished work at a little later today than I normally do and had about 10 minutes to go and hop on the bus and get into town because I needed to get some Claritin because yesterday after the lawns were mowed, I opened up all the windows and all of a sudden I was having difficulty breathing. And I suddenly realized, oh crap, allergies. Big hay fever. And it was very difficult to breathe. Fortunately, I have oils with me that can help suppress some of the allergic reactions and things. Sorry, I've got something floating around in here. So I hopped on the bus today, went to town and got some Claritin. I don't really like using the over-the-counter stuff, but this was a case of I really needed it. And when it's absolutely necessary, that's when I will take medication. And so this was an absolutely necessary time. And so I've had the Claritin and already starting to feel better, breathing easier. There was a bit of wind out there, but I got down and back in an hour. So I caught the bus down there. When I got there, I had about 30 minutes until the bus left to come back home. So I went and got done the 2 errands I had to do and then got the bus back home and I was home an hour later. So pretty cool. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss. What are we here to discuss? We are here to discuss what can silence in a family tell us? Silence often points directly to what mattered most. Remember how we've been talking about stories are disappearing or can't be found and why? Silence is one of those things. People avoided topics because they signaled pain or they needed to do it because it was painful or they wanted to protect the family from whatever the topic was, whatever the story was, whatever the trauma was. There are sometimes when we've talked about it this week, that sometimes people forget about trauma because they've actually blacked it out of their brain has blacked it out for them. They've just got this black hole in that area because the body went into protective mode, the brain went into protective mode and knew that the person couldn't handle it. So literally wiped that memory. Well, didn't wipe it, but blocked them from getting to see it. Years later, they may start recalling because they're in a better place to handle it. And sometimes they don't. So when people are telling stories, they avoid topics which can signal it's either painful or they're doing it to protect somebody or to protect themselves. Names never spoken hold meaning. So if you know that your great-grandfather, your second great-grandfather had siblings and you knew for sure that there was about 4, but you had heard the rumor that he had a 5th sibling, maybe, and nobody ever talked about that person as they were kind of like the black sheep of the family. So who were these people? What made them the black sheep of the family? Sometimes digging deep and uncovering that story can determine why they were the black sheep of the family, why they were never spoken about. And it could just be that there was a family rift and we don't mention that name anymore. Or it could be something more darker. It could be a crime or something like that, or could be a family disagreement. It could be that they moved and lost contact with the family. So the family is just like, well, they won't contact us, so they're out of here. Silence is a form of communication as well. If something is not spoken about, it often means that is a form of communication. It is telling people that don't go treading in here. You do not want to go this way. It's almost like a detour. So they're telling you that if you continue down this path, you're going to hit we need to detour you off this path. Here is the story path, but we're going to divert you over here. Families remember around difficult truths. Yes, there are times that some part of the family may know a secret that another part of the family doesn't know. There could be times when people change their names because of a trauma that happened to them, or they want to disassociate themselves from their family for a very good reason. And so they completely changed their name, which made them difficult to find. So sometimes the names that are never spoken that hold meaning, they could be because the person changed their name and the family doesn't know how to contact them. They left because they didn't want to be in that situation that they were in. And families remember around the difficult time, like we talked about earlier in the week with the movie Vantage Point. Everybody has a different perspective on the same incident. You can all stand there and watch this incident take place, yet everybody will have a different point of view to tell. Um, and you've got to get everybody's story to complete the whole picture. So for those that are willing to talk about, because remember, if there's no talking about it, there's going to be supposition in there. And it's going to be put in there that our opinion is, or we suppose that, or we are guessing that, and you put those into, when you're writing up the story, you put in there, these are the facts that we can prove. Based on these facts, we can surmise that this may have happened this way, or here's a couple of theories that we've come up with based on the evidence that we have. And that's what we're doing with a certain story within our family, because one side of the family is very tight-lipped about it. The other side talks it. The other side knows the tight-lipped side knows everything. The other side of the family is trying to figure out what happened. So based on the evidence that we have gathered over the years, there's a lot of different theories that we've come up with what happened. I would actually love to sit down with my second great grandmother and ask her some very pointed questions about some of the decisions that she made and some of the theories that we have, and find out what the actual truth is. Of course, that's not going to happen. She's been dead a very long time. She's been dead longer than I've been alive. So that's never going to happen. But she's left behind a big mystery in the family that we keep chipping away and finding little clues here and there on what we can. But will we ever know the truth? Unless the other side of the family talks about it, we're not going to know. So families remember that around difficult truths, they know, some families will know part of the full story, some will know part of it, some will know none of it at all. So it depends on who was there, who witnessed it, what's been passed down orally from one generation to the next, and what they've been willing to pass on, because some family members will suppress some of the information when they pass it on to the next generation. Patterns of avoidance reveal history. If there is a certain thing that people in your family are avoiding, why? Is this something that's been avoided through the generations? Is it something just particular to that generation? Or has this been passed down through generations? Is there a pattern of people avoiding a place, a name, an event in history that they just don't talk about? And you might get told, there are some things in this family we don't talk about, or we don't talk about that. Or I don't know where you heard that from, but we don't talk about things like that. You'll get all sorts of, you'll come up against all sorts of blocks and walls that will say, we don't talk about it. That basically mean go somewhere else, because we're not going to talk about that topic, which makes somebody like me, if somebody says we don't talk about things like that, I says, you do realize that I have a very active imagination, and based on the evidence that I have gathered so far with birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, etc., 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 I can come up with some really good theories. Do you really want me to spout out those theories and put them out there as theories? I said, because with me, when it comes to people avoiding a topic, unless they give me a really good reason why, and we don't talk about that, is not a good reason, I'm sorry. But as a genealogist, I want to get to the truth for my clients, for my own family and for my clients. So I will ask some of those difficult questions in a calm and in a calm manner, in a very compassionate manner, and just say, this is going to be a big hole on the tree. People who come after me are going to see that hole and wonder why we never filled it. Yes, I can leave some comments in that area of the tree, but that's just going to make people more curious. And the more pit walls people put up, the more curious I get. So silence guide, and so all of this matters because silence will guide researchers towards important stories. Yes, the more walls we come up, the more blockages family members put up around a topic, around an event, the more we want to dig. Yeah, genealogists, we don't give up. It's in our, I don't have it with me. It's in our standards that we have to exhaust every possible resource out there before we give up on a theory. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot. So it takes a very, very, very long time before we would give up on a topic. We will write a lot of notes about it. We might leave it alone for a bit and come back to it a few years later when more records are available. But I will tell you this, a genealogist is like a dog with a bone. Yeah, The more silence that there is, the more curious we become, the more we hang on to that bone. We might bury it for a little bit, just to allow online resources, to get more resource records online, to be able to get to a place to do research with boots on the ground. So there's very different reasons why we will put things aside for a while and come back to it later. I have a lot of stuff on my to-do list that's been I've got the put aside list. This stuff has been put aside for a while, and this is why it's been put aside. And then we'll come back and pick up that thread later on. So beware. We will keep digging. And your practical takeaway is notice what questions never get answered. What questions have you asked people in your family about that's never actually been answered? They might start to answer it, but all of a sudden they'll divert in a different way and lead you somewhere else because they don't want to talk about that. How many times have you been diverted in a conversation? It's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of times I've come across newspaper articles. The people, my ancestors who are involved in those newspaper articles are no longer around to ask about it. So I've asked existing family members, hey, look, I came across this newspaper article. Do you know anything about it? And my parents have been very forthcoming on stuff that I have found in the newspapers regarding family members. And they've turned around and told me what the story was and why that happened. I'm like, okay. It doesn't I don't publish it because it's a private family matter. That's why my tree is private. And so nobody outside of my family will ever find that information out because I won't tell it. I have been satisfied in the answer to my question. I stumbled across a record and I thought, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like that person. And so I went to my mum and dad and said, hey, I found this article. Do you know anything about it? And they've come back and told me what happened, what actually happened, what the circumstances was and everything else. I'm like, okay, that's it. Thank you very much. And that story will never get told because it's something that was a private family matter that the person involved was very embarrassed about. And so even though they're no longer around, I don't want to cause them any further embarrassment by further generations finding out about that. The information is out there, and if they go find it themselves, that's fine. But this is something that I'm not going to go and broadcast. So you will find stuff like that. So notice what questions never get answered. Why do they never get answered? Put your little detective, blah, 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 blah. Put your detective hat on and go hunting. And if you want help interpreting family silence, send us a private message and we're more than happy to set up a time to discuss it with you. And in closing, silence is not empty. It is informative. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we will catch you guys back here tomorrow. Oh, hang on. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be late. I have my mastermind group on. So I'm probably somewhere close